For literally thousands of years, we've had this incredibly deep, often sacred relationship with bees. So today, we're going to trace that story, how our view of this amazing little insect has shifted from being seen as a divine messenger to a key partner in modern agriculture.
And this is really the place we have to start. Because long before we understood things like pollination, people saw something different in the bee, something special. Across the globe, they weren't just valued for honey, but for a kind of spiritual power that put them right at the heart of our biggest stories, myths, and religions.
So here's the roadmap. First, we'll look at the bee as a divine creature. Then we'll see how it became a symbol of power for pharaohs and priests. After that, we'll explore the hive as a model for medieval kingdoms, then jump into the scientific revolution that completely changed beekeeping. And we'll wrap up with what the bee can still teach us today. All right, first stop, the world of belief. Because if you look at the great religions and the foundational myths of humanity, the bee shows up again and again as this perfect example of virtue and as a direct product of divine creation. And what's so cool is how consistent these ideas are, In sacred texts like the Quran and the Bible, bees are praised for these exact qualities. Their purity was obvious in the clean wax they made. Their constant work was a lesson for all of us. And the hive itself, it was seen as this little miracle of natural, God-given order. Now let's jump back to the ancient world, because this respect wasn't just a vague idea. It became a real symbol of power. In places like ancient Egypt and Greece, bees were directly tied to the gods and, of course, to the rulers who claimed to represent them. I mean, just listen to that. That's the ancient Egyptian creation myth for bees. It's absolutely beautiful. It means the bee isn't just another animal. It's literally born from a god, a piece of divine power and emotion falling to earth and coming to life. It connects them right to the source of all life in their world. And this wasn't just talk. We have real physical proof. Archaeologists have found these advanced clay hives in Egypt that are almost 4,500 years old. And at the same time, over in Greece, bees were so tied to divine knowledge that they became associated with the most famous oracle in the world, at Delphi. For the Egyptians, this was serious stuff. The bee became the official symbol of Lower Egypt. The pharaoh himself took the title He of the Sedge and the Bee to show he ruled the unified kingdom. And honey? It wasn't just food. It was used in sacred offerings to the gods and even in the process of mummification. So the bee was a hugely powerful political symbol of a perfect, orderly society. And the Greek connection? Well, it was literally baked into their language. The word for the holy priestesses who served the goddesses was Melissae, which means bees. It wasn't just a cute nickname. It was their official title. It meant they embodied the purity of the bee and that they were a direct channel for divine wisdom and prophecy. Okay, let's fast forward a bit to medieval Europe, because here, the bee's symbolism gets a whole new, very political job. The hive, with its perfect structure, became the ultimate metaphor for the ideal human society, a divinely ordered monarchy. And you can see why this was such a powerful idea back then, right? The hive has one single ruler, the queen, just like a kingdom has its king or queen, chosen by God. You have the worker bees, who are the perfect, loyal subjects, all working for the common good. And the result of all that hard work is honey and wax, which represents the prosperity and wealth of the whole kingdom. To them, it was nature's blueprint for a perfect society. The church, of course, was all over this. Beeswax was seen as the purest, most perfect substance for making candles. They burned with a clean, bright light in all the great cathedrals. This made the bee itself a powerful symbol of Christian virtue. It was obedient, worked for the community, and literally produced light in the darkness. So, what about this number? 300 plus. What on earth could that mean? Well, it's tied to one of the most famous and ambitious rulers in all of history, who looked back at these ancient symbols to cement his own power. And there you have it, Napoleon Bonaparte. He specifically chose the bee as his personal symbol, throwing out the old royal fleur-de-lis. And to make the point, he had over 300 golden bees embroidered onto his massive coronation robe. It was a clear message. The old Francis Duran, a new empire is here, built on the bee-like values of hard work, order, and total loyalty to one leader. So now we hit a major turning point. This is where thousands of years of myth and symbol collide with the logic and reason of the Industrial Revolution. It's the moment beekeeping goes from a kind of rustic, often destructive art into a modern, manageable science. See, for centuries, most people kept bees in these things called skeps, basically upside-down woven baskets. The problem was the bees glued their combs right to the inside walls. So to get the honey out, you pretty much had to destroy the colony, often killing the bees. You couldn't check for diseases, you couldn't help them grow. It was a dead end.
And then came the breakthrough. It was this incredibly simple but absolutely game-changing observation by a guy named Lorenzo Langstroth in 1851. He figured out that bees always leave a specific gap open, about 3/8 of an inch. Any smaller, and they seal it shut with propolis. Any bigger, and they build more comb in it. By building a box with frames that were all separated by this perfect bee space, he invented the modern movable frame beehives.
And this one idea changed absolutely everything. For the first time, beekeepers could open a hive, gently lift out a single frame, check on the queen, look for diseases, and take surplus honey without killing the colony. It transformed beekeeping from a gamble into a sustainable form of agriculture. And guess what? This exact design is still the standard all over the world today. So after this incredible trip through myth, monarchy, and modern science, what's the big takeaway? You know, our relationship with the bee has always been like a mirror, reflecting who we are and how we see the world at any given time. I mean, just think about this journey. The bee starts as a literal tear from an Egyptian sun god. It becomes the voice of prophecy in Greece. It's held up as a perfect model for a kingdom, then used as an imperial symbol by Napoleon. And today, it's a critical partner in our vast agricultural system. The bee's job title has changed, but its importance, never. And that really leaves us with one final big question. This whole story, it's really our story, isn't it? It's about our own shift from a world of reverence and magic to one of efficiency and science. So the real challenge for us right now is to find a balance. Can we use all our modern knowledge to protect these amazing creatures without losing that sense of wonder, that deep respect that our ancestors had for them?